Welcome to The Bureau, the official podcast of the International UFO Bureau. Founded in 1957 and reimagined for today, we're fusing decades of discovery with next-gen tech to uncover the truth about unidentified anomalous phenomena. Join Executive Director Terry Keel, CEO Mindy Totfest, and Director of Research Melissa Madrigal. 3 generations, 1 mission: to investigate the unknown and bring the truth into focus. This is The Bureau.
Well, hello, and welcome to The Bureau. This is where 3 generations of women come together to discuss the truth behind unidentified anomalous phenomena. And today, I'm joined with my 2 co-hosts, Melissa and Terry, as always. How are you girls doing?
Doing great.
Oh, how are you guys?
Good to be here.
I'm excited about today. We've got a wonderful guest, and a lot of people may not know her. She's kind of been hidden behind the shadows. I know she carries on a professional life and doesn't really do a lot of public speaking and stuff. So we're lucky to have her out here. I'm so excited for the audience to get to know her. And I guess I'll jump in and just go ahead and introduce her. Today we have Sam Sheridan, and I have to back up really quick. Last week I had said that it was Mark D'Antonio, and Terry, you knew. We had messed up on the scheduling, and I was thinking Mark was this week. So I apologize to those that are listening, and we're looking for Mark. He'll be here in a couple of weeks. This week it is Sam Sheridan, and Terry, you should have spoken up.
I know I was going to, but I didn't want to, make you wrong.
But I was wrong.
I know. I hate pointing fingers. Not a good thing.
I know. Oh, so anyway, so today we are so blessed to have Sam Sheridan with us. And so her background is she's the National Response Director for the International UFO Bureau and a dedicated researcher in the field of unexplained aerial phenomena. She was a former Maryland State Director, and she has led investigations into some of the region's most compelling cases. Sam is known for blending grounded research with spiritual insight, bringing both rigor and compassion to her work. She's also an entrepreneur and creative professional, using blogs, apparel, and community gatherings to make UFO dialogue accessible to the public. Outside of her research, Sam enjoys hiking, kayaking, and spending time with her husband, her children, and her 2 German shepherds. So let's welcome Sam into the show. How are you today, Sam?
Welcome.
Hey, I'm so glad to be here with you.
Oh, sorry. I think we overtalked each other there. Sorry.
Yeah.
That's okay. No, I was just saying how happy I am to be with you ladies tonight.
Yay.
Well,
We're
Sam,
so
I'll tell you, when we got you into the Bureau, whenever you first joined in, we had someone else in this position. And it was funny. I was actually speaking with Melissa before this about one of the comments that we had seen on Facebook. It's like, I see what you guys are doing. You have 3 beautiful women and 4 beautiful women here. Is this where we're going with UFOs? Well, that's how it just ended up happening, because we actually had a man in your position at first, and then he had to step away due to family issues and whatnot. And Sam, when you joined in, my goodness, you brought a whole new level to that position that we weren't expecting. So thank you.
Oh, you are welcome. And it has been such a pleasure. I mean, I know I hit the ground running and we had a little bit of, things to make up, but I've loved every minute of it.
Yeah. Well, I think your professional background has played a big role in it because you came in and immediately started organizing everything, because we've just tried to build as quickly as possible to keep up with public demand. We weren't expecting people to catch on so quickly of what we were doing. We were kind of just putting things out a little bit here and there for people in the research community to keep up to date with what we were doing. But then the greater community found out, and we had tens of thousands of people coming to us. So you got with it immediately and just started lining everything out, and especially with people that are wanting to become members of the Bureau and helping find that path forward. So thank you so much with all the work you're doing.
Yeah, well, thank you. You're welcome, I guess.
Yeah.
Well, it is so nice having you with us because you do really have quite the skill set, and it has been a complete blessing. And like Mindy said, organizing, you've got the knack for that, definitely. And it was really needed. And like she said, we did grow so quickly, and cases were coming at us. We weren't even able to take them. We were still bringing on all our pros, and we can talk about all of that. And you have done a spectacular job in what you're doing here at the Bureau. And I do speak for all of us. We do so thank you for everything that you're doing on top of the fact that you are working still, and you have a full life and 2 dogs.
I do. And I think, my background as a marketing professional, I actually work for a Fortune 50 company. And so,
Yes.
it's funny when I got into marketing, I told my husband, I'm like, I don't know why I have to learn all these spreadsheets. I'm never going to need it. Well, let me tell you, I have become quite the pro with Excel and smart sheets and things like that. I track all my data that way. That's how I keep us organized. It has great project management features. So all along, when I thought maybe I wasn't going to need this, it has just helped me so much professionally. And I think, even in the job that I do, which is a lot of event planning, I think eventually that's going to come, forward to help us too with the Bureau. So yeah, I'm
Absolutely.
glad I have the skill set that I could bring.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
And should I jump in and start asking some questions?
Yeah, if you
Yeah.
want to go ahead and see how she got started in this.
Yes, absolutely. So you've been deeply involved in case investigations for a very long time. And can you share what first sparked your interest actually in UFOs and how it led you into this type of research for us?
Yeah, I always like to say I'm just a big sci-fi nerd, and I like science and all that. And I have very fond memories in my childhood of watching Star Trek with my dad. And so, I think just right from the beginning, Gene Roddenberry was so far ahead of his time. And,
Yeah.
everything, we have cell phones today, but, back then when they were, talking with their little communicators and everything, this was so advanced for us. And I just remember it opened up like my mind to like what the future could be and, seeing, other beings from the universe. So I think that's like really kind of what triggered it for me. And then because I am such a huge fan of Leonard Nimoy, from Star Trek, he had that show In Search of. And I
Yes.
was watching In Search of, and he mentioned UFOs and, and I just remembered it scared me. I thought, oh my God, could there really be such a thing though? Sure, watching it on Star Trek is one thing, but the fact that they really exist. And I remember even as a child, just always looking out at the sky at night, looking to see if I could see anything or not. And then I was just hooked. Anything I could get my hands on when I was younger to read about it. And then I think what really sealed the deal for me was Whitley Strieber's book, Communion. I think after I read that, I was like, see, I knew it. I knew it was real. And so, that's really, how that got me into this. And I think, when I really joined the professional groups where we were investigating cases, I mean, that just took it to the next level for me.
Yeah. Great.
Well, so wait a minute. You're Gen X too, aren't you?
I am.
Heck yeah.
Ooh. All right.
We've got 2 Gen
Uh-oh.
Xers in the house.
Melissa, we've got 2 Gen Xers here. So
You're outnumbered today, guys.
yeah, we are.
Right.
But no, what you're talking about, like those were some of the things that were impactful for myself as well. So I was picking up on that. And Whitley Strieber, that Communion, I actually quoted some of that in my book because that was where light bulbs started going off for me. But I was talking with Terry. I think that you're a lot like me, where we always felt drawn to the subject, even from a very little age. I mean, before we were even reading, we were looking at the sky. I think that there's something intrinsically in some of us, even if we don't have memories of abductions or something like that, where we know that this is what's meant for us, that we're supposed to play a part in disclosure and bringing this information out to the public. Is that true for yourself?
Very much so. And, something I didn't mention is, the show Ancient Aliens. You know, I had my kids, they were very young. And I remember watching it. You know, I'm sure they were probably running around and I watched it and I was like, oh my God, like this is it. Like, you know, how you kind of have a knowing. I've had some very unusual dreams. I'm not going to say I've ever seen anything. I tend to be a little skeptical, but then at times I felt like I'd have these dreams that just seemed so real to me about like being looking at a grid pattern in space, or like how the ship just starts off, you know. And I thought, how do I know that? It just felt like a little peek behind the veil, you know, that maybe is in my subconscious. But yeah, I'm pretty much obsessed with this topic. I really am.
Well, that's a good thing. You're in the right place.
Yes.
So are we all.
So as far as the Bureau, with your work that you're doing with us, have you seen any compelling cases come through so far?
It's amazing, some of the cases that we've gotten right now. You know, as I look through them, I feel like there's a spectrum kind of all over the places. We have some really cool historical cases. And so one of them is like back from 1962 in Massachusetts. It's a really good one. There are like 12 witnesses, and they all saw like 3 or 4 different shaped crafts kind of going across the valley in a line. And they said the last one was a pyramid that was going counterclockwise. And so it, you know, intrigued them so much, they actually called the police. The police said that other people had called it in too, that they were seeing it. And I guess years later, like the witness's mom was actually interviewed on a Boston radio station about the case. And so I just think that's fascinating, because this is back in 1980, or I'm sorry, I said 1962. Never mind. That was the one in Massachusetts. But I mean, I thought that one was really cool. So let me talk to you about the one that was in New York, though.
But wait a minute.
Massachusetts.
Let's talk about Massachusetts real quick.
Okay.
Before you jump forward.
About Massachusetts.
Well, because I'm so excited about this, because I don't get to look at cases anymore. I'm doing more administrative work, and I know, and so I didn't even know about this case. So I guess it's still an open case. And are we trying to contact the police and get that report and everything?
Absolutely.
Wow. Yeah.
So, you know, we have so many pros that are on the team, or our phenomenon response officers.
Right.
And so, you know, these cases have been assigned to them, and they're starting to really dig in and work on this. And I mean, when you have a case like this with 12 witnesses, granted, it's been a while, but still, you know, I think the opportunity to talk to someone who was actually there is pretty high, and see if there are any police records. Yeah.
Right. Well, and that was a big part of the Hartshorn case that we have in our archives from Hayden way back to the 60s. And then whenever I investigated the schoolyard case that came out of Hartshorn, one of the main factors of it was the time that had elapsed since then, but the memory of the children that were there and how much it lined up. And it wasn't lined up in a way where they were repeating the same narrative. It was, they were giving their own insight into the same phenomena, but it all lined up. So it'll be interesting to follow this Massachusetts case. So, okay. And then what was the next one you were going to talk about?
So I started to confuse that with New York, because this case comes from us from New York in 1983. And I think we all know in 1983 or the 80s, we had the whole Hudson Valley thing going on.
Yes.
Over there. And so this is about a young adult who was like on his bicycle, kind of riding around in the evening. And he said all of a sudden, as he was riding, he heard everything get really silent, like no animals, no birds, just this kind of stillness, right? And then he said he felt this static electricity come all over his body. And so, of course, he said, I was compelled to look up. And he sees this large craft. He didn't give a shape of it. So, you know, that was going over. And he said he was just transfixed and like stared at it for like 3 minutes. And he said while he was looking at it, he started to get this metallic taste in his mouth. And he got goosebumps, or I mean, not goosebumps, like literally the hair on his arm started to stand up from like the static electricity. And so then, you know, after being transfixed, he realized, hey, I better, you know, get moving. And so he said, you know, he started to ride his bike home. And he said, as soon as he got away from it, the metallic taste went away, the static electricity went away. And so that is kind of another historical case. But I think we hear of so many people who hear the humming, who hear the static or have that kind of static electrical kind of sensation, that comes across them.
Yes.
So I think this is now the metallic taste. I may have heard that. I've not seen that in a lot of cases. So I thought that was like a fascinating little tidbit that's in that case. So another one that we're actively working. And I have a couple more if we have time.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well,
All right.
I wanted to comment on the Hudson Valley. I remember whenever I lived out in New Jersey, this would have been early 2000s, and there was a mass sighting over the Garden State Parkway. And people were actually pulling over to the side of the road and getting out of their cars. And I remember the news was actually showing they were like, oh, we know who's responsible. And they showed a picture of an alien, of course. And I just thought that was kind of silly. But I've never found out any more about that. But it's right there, adjacent to New York. And when was this guy's sighting?
This sighting was in 1983.
83. So it would have been several years before. Okay. I was wondering if there was any correlation there, but obviously not. So let's go ahead and let's hear some more of them, because I'm loving these. I really miss doing the investigation side. So I'm excited to talk to you and hear these.
And I think the next two cases too talk about the difference between cases that we get, and I encourage anybody with any type of case, to come forward with it. And this one is from Nevada. It's 1995. And this is about a gentleman who got up early in the morning around 5:30 to go out for a jog. So he gets up in the morning. Apparently he lived with his dad. He sees that his dad is already up and he's dressed in like a red plaid shirt, and he's like, hey, going out for my run. Goes out, is jogging through the neighborhood, and he sees something up in the sky that looks like, like one of those amber orbs that people see. And so he notices it's moving kind of slowly, but he's still jogging, thinking, well, maybe it's just something, unusual. And so he starts to come back home. And as he's jogging home, he notices that it looks like the houses in the neighborhood don't have any power. There's no lights on, no street lights on or anything. He's like, wow, that's really weird. So he actually jogs faster, to get back home because he's got like this weird feeling, right? So he gets into the house and he looks at the clock, and it's actually 30 minutes earlier than when he left. It's 5 a.m. His dad walks out of the bedroom in his pajamas, and the son says, Dad, why did you change your clothes? You were just dressed. And the dad's like, I don't know what you're talking about. And so, the guy thought, wow, that was really weird. And then a few minutes later, he notices that his dad has gotten dressed, and he came out in the exact same red plaid shirt as what, he saw him when he thought he left the first time at 5:30. So
that's very interesting.
One of those cases where it's not like missing time per se, and they come back like 2 hours later. This person feels like they went through like a time distortion, and they actually got back 30 minutes before. So I thought that is one of the more unusual cases that we have. So that one was really good.
Yeah, well, because missing time is such a big part of the phenomena. And I'm with you, Sam, whenever we get these ones where people are returned earlier, because we know people are returned and their clothes are on backwards, or they're wearing someone else's clothes that they've never seen in their life. There's all kinds of bizarre things that happen when people are returned, but when they've actually gained time, and it's almost like they manipulated time to return them without their memory, but they messed up and gave them too much. The fact that he actually saw his father in the same clothes, that's bizarre.
That's very interesting.
It is. And, I was just talking with someone the other day who told me that they had that same type of thing happen, and it was an interdimensional shift. And they actually went to, we're in the future, came back, and were able to go back. And it was all within just a few seconds, minutes actually, because, like this guy, He leaves and it's what, 5 o'clock.
5:30.
Comes,
Yeah.
goes, and then he comes back and it's 5. So this kind of thing is interdimensional, and it's like they just open some form of a portal and just literally walk through and walk back. It's not even necessarily seen by anybody. You know, you don't see it, you just experience it. You're there and then you're back. So it's very strange how the mind handles all these different things that can happen.
Yeah.
Very
Well,
cool.
just think about it. If there was no place to report this, like,
Right.
how do you have a conversation with your family or friends that I was
Right.
Especially after you
jogging
feel
at 5:30 in
crazy.
the morning? Yeah,
Yes.
absolutely.
I mean, I feel like you definitely start losing your mind.
Sure,
And I
you
think
would.
in the report, I remember him ending it with him saying something like, look, I'm like a really credible person, but, you know, I wanted to get this out there because he said, you know, due to all the skepticism and things, you know, the stigma around it, he said, I swear to God, I'm not like the tinfoil hat guy. And so the fact that he even says that, you know, like how unusual it is. So.
Well, you
Right.
wonder how much this happens and people don't catch it. Like Terry was saying, if it was only a matter of seconds, and it's almost like a deja vu or something
Right.
where you
Yes.
just know something happened, it wasn't quite right, and then you just shrug it off.
You don't really register it because something is happening. And, you know, it's like what you were sharing earlier, Sam. You know, you had all these things when you were younger. You may have very well had experiences, but because we don't always remember, and a lot of times they don't allow us to remember because they're in charge of us as we're in their fields. You know, they create these different fields that we enter, and we don't use that much of our brain. We're only using such a very small part of it, and our eyes can only see like a percentage of what's
1%
around
of the
us.
entire light spectrum.
Absolutely.
Exactly. So we don't really even register it, you know, and it's very interesting conversation. I could go into something like this for hours at a time. Just give me a cup of coffee and I'm there.
Right. I was just about to bring up this comment. Looks like another time
Yeah.
warp type situation.
Yeah.
Do you want to go ahead and read it?
Yeah, I
Melissa?
phoned my girlfriend from a call box at the edge of town and said I'm on my way walking towards your house, which is 15 minutes away, and arrived in 5 minutes, and I can't remember the journey.
Wow.
Their time warp situation there.
Mm-hmm. You know, Denise Stoner, who is also with the Bureau, had one of the most amazing, and we'll have her on here soon in the future, but she had an absolutely amazing experience with her husband where they were driving and they got to a stop sign and they still had to go 60 miles and found themselves there in minutes. And
That's amazing.
that is so powerful. And her and her husband, you know, both were so shocked by it. So these are really beautiful cases. And
Right.
please report if you've got something like this to report.iufob.com, because we're looking for patterns. We're looking for what connects these dots, who is in charge of manipulating that time, because someone is literally in charge of doing this. And that's where we're going. That's what we want to know. And we want to find out more about that. So please report to us.
Yeah, and talking about credible people, just about missing time. I love this story. I like to tell it to people just because when somebody is credible, it makes them look at the case a little bit more deeply, I think. When I was 16, I was seeing a doctor, like an MD. And before he was an MD, he was a police officer. And I had a lot of health issues going on. So my mom had to tell him, hey, she sees ghosts, but she doesn't see things. She hears things, but she doesn't hear things. You know what I mean? Like, she's not crazy. And so he decided to let us know after a couple visits, hey, I want you to know that I believe you. I went hiking up on Mount Shasta, which Mount Shasta is a very interesting place with lots of different portals there. And he said he walked into a portal and ended up on the other side of the mountain within seconds. So it's just another story of somebody who was a cop and then he was an MD and still has these strange experiences.
Credible witness, right?
Yeah, you need to have him file a report. And I wanted to say really quickly to TET that had left that comment, they said that they've only told this story about 10 times. So thank you so much for sharing that. And if you feel open to it, please file a report with the Bureau, because that will add to our understanding if we can put that with this other gentleman's case and see if there's any kind of patterns like Terry was saying. So we thank you. So Sam, you had another one to share, I
I
guess?
do. I feel like we
Okay.
have to close this out with an abduction case. So
Ooh.
this was from 2024, a little bit more recent, and this is in Tennessee. And so the witness said he didn't say how he was abducted. Basically, he knows at some point he passed out. And he said when he woke up, he was in a white room, like with a white light on a white table. He had like a tube in his nostril, his right nostril, and his right ear. And he said, but he could look down, and at the end of the bed, he saw like 3 muscular male beings that were all blonde, and they had on tight blue suits. And they told him telepathically, it's okay, calm down, and, that it would be okay. So he said he actually had like this overwhelming feeling of love kind of come over him. And then when he was returned, he said he felt like very healthy and healed. But what's amazing about this case is he has photos of his back, like at the day after the abduction. And there is like this honeycomb pattern that is on his skin that looks like some sort of a grid or something that like maybe it slightly singed his skin. And so he has photos of this. And, every time somebody sends a photo or any kind of evidence, that we can analyze, that makes, the case a lot more credible. So I think this case is really fascinating. And I don't know about you all, but how many times have you heard about people in these tight suits? I mean, sometimes they're black, sometimes they're blue, sometimes they're brown, but I've heard this a lot in a lot of cases.
Yeah.
Right. And, Admiral Byrd is the one who first saw them when he was in Antarctica and flew over into, it was almost like a dimension opened, and now he's in a plush area with green grass, and it's not 60 below. And he actually interacted with these, what we kind of have labeled Nordics, but they're men in these suits. And they told him then, way back in the 20s, the 40s, you can't use nuclear weaponry. They were telling us then not to do that. And look at where we are today, as if we've listened. So it's interesting, these interactions between extraterrestrial realms and the different types of beings that there are out there, and they truly are out there. So that is really something,
Admiral Byrd stopped talking about this.
Right. They sure did. Yeah. But Johnson, who recently passed, on his deathbed, he said, I'm telling it all. I am telling the truth. I am not dying and leaving this planet and leaving the knowledge that I have, that Admiral Byrd and I both had. I'm speaking about it. What are they going to do? Kill me? I'm dying. So he literally, it's very interesting. Look him up, Google him. But anyway, moving right along, we could ask you another question. Is that okay?
Sure, go for it.
So as National Response Director of IUFOB, what does your role involve on a day-to-day basis?
Whew. Well, like I said, ever since I kind of took this role, it's been like a whirlwind. So, I find myself during the day, I do have a full-time job. So, I find myself on a lunch break, checking emails here and there to see if anything new has come in. We have this wonderful chat with our group now. So, I'm always trying to check on that and make sure I'm not missing anything. And so I find really, for me, it's mostly evenings and weekends where I really spend a lot of time on this, because right now, we're really increasing our membership, and we're looking for people who are professional, who are the best at this, and we're bringing them on board. And so I always, sit in on interviews with our assistant national response officer, Daryl. And so we interview people together. And so, we're trying to screen folks and make sure they're going to be a really good fit for this organization, that they have prior field investigation skills,
Very
because we
important.
want to bring in the best of the best right now.
Right.
And, so a lot of time is spent just interviewing people and making sure they're a good fit. Then, we have reporting that we're looking at, the case assignments that we do. You all know every Saturday I send you all a report talking about what's happened during the week and, what we've got going
Fabulous.
on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
We love it.
Oh, good. And then, we're also getting ready, to really meet with the pros that we have and make sure that they're very clear on our processes and guidelines so that we're all doing everything the same. So I think that's like really important to make sure, as Mindy and you ladies refurbish this group, that we're doing everything consistently, scientifically. And I do have to, I'm very excited about this. I'm calling it the CCR, like CCR, the group is called the Case Credibility Scale. And so, we're looking at how we're ranking our cases a little differently than some other groups have in the past. And I think, the scale that we're going to use really is going to help us, determine the most credible ones from hoaxes and things like that. So, all those kinds of things come into play, as you're doing this role. And it's been a great ride.
Well, I remember when you and I were discussing about how we wanted to rate cases, and immediately we got to work on it. And as soon as we got it together, everyone was like, this is it. I remember whenever I was still actively investigating it, one of the things that would get me was you would either have to classify something as unknown or identified. And sometimes, a lot of times, there are things that fall in between that. So you would have something that like Chinese lanterns or balloons even that were released or something like that you could not pinpoint. I can't go down the street and ask Sally Sue, did you release a whole bunch of Chinese lanterns for some celebration? But the signatures of it. That they're going to look reddish orange. They're going to flicker. They're going to come out in a sporadic kind of line because normally people launch one after another. We know the telltale signs of it. So we needed a classification that we could actually classify things within that and say, okay, this is more than likely identified. I can't prove it 100% because I can't say this is Mars and this is where it was. We just have to go off of our instincts. And that's why we're looking for people that do have investigative backgrounds to them that have actually investigated the UFO phenomena and know these telltale signs.
Yeah. And I want to give a quick shout out to Daryl too, because Daryl Bulow, I'm telling you, we have had such an influx of cases come in that he is really, helping me keep my sanity and, logging all these cases and making sure they're getting assigned quickly because it's been a lot. And I'm very thankful for him. So we have some great.
And Daryl's working too. Who was he on tour with? He was
Kelly Clarkson. Oh, was it?
Oh, Kelly Clarkson.
Yeah, Kelly.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah. So he's always having someone famous out there in Vegas with him.
Yeah.
He's setting things up. So just between you two, I don't know how you guys find the time because I know you have college kids, kids that are in college. I just sent mine away to college and that's a lot. We've talked about that. It's such a loss. My poor mama heart.
Yeah.
So, but I don't know how you guys find the time. And I'm so glad that you do because both of you are such professionals and have such skills so tailored for this. And we've had to continuously refine as we've grown. Me and Terry, when we first started all of this, we wrote probably 400 pages of protocols.
Easy. Yeah.
And half of them we've had to throw out because they no longer apply because things have changed as we've continued to grow.
Right.
One of those things is the membership that you brought up, Sam, and the way we've had to refine that. So would you like to speak to that some now of the new process and why we changed it up?
Yeah, sure. I mean, I think originally, we had like a little application button on the website, you're like, hey,
Uh-huh.
if you have some experience, apply, and we'll do your background check and we'll interview you. Well, we had so many applicants, who are people who are full of passion about this topic, like we are, but they don't have the field investigation experience yet. And they don't have, or some of them, we have a connect group, which I'll probably talk about later, they
Yeah.
don't have the experiencer experience yet.
Right.
And
Right.
so, as we said, we're looking for professionals. So I applaud you, Mindy. We had to kind of put that button away.
We did.
And so now people who are interested and they want to become part of this group as a pro or part of the Connect team, they just have to reach out to me directly. And, my email it's on the website, but it
Yeah.
is NRD, like November, Romeo, Delta, NRD at IUFOB.com. And you can reach out to me directly. And I'll kind of do a little screening in the email if you tell me a little bit about your investigative background. And then I will schedule a formal interview. And then we would have you formally apply and pay the $35 application fee, because all of us go through a background check. And
Yeah.
that $35 is mostly for the background check for us, because, I
Right.
think it's very important to call out, because we have people who could potentially be going into witnesses' homes and interviewing them. And again, we just need to make sure, we have the right people on board. But I will tell you, and, so many of my interviews, though, we have people who have security clearances.
Yes.
It's like, they've worked for the Pentagon and things like that. And so,
Yeah.
I'm not too concerned about those folks. But
Yeah.
nonetheless, we
The
want to make sure
DOD.
that,
You never
yeah.
know. I mean, first thing was the board of directors. We all had to go through the background checks and
Right.
everything. In order to remain transparent from the very top level, that's how we wanted it was. And
Mhm.
when you saw, whenever Alex was looking at who do I start running checks on first, I was like, me and Terry.
Yeah, you sure
Do us
did.
first. Yeah. Just to get it out there and to be transparent. So um,
Nothing shady going on here. It's all transparent and upfront.
yeah, well, and that was important to have accountability through all
absolutely.
levels of what we're doing.
Mhm.
No one is overlooked or gets a free pass. So
Right.
that's the way we wanted it from the very get-go.
Mhm.
Yeah. So basically, just reach out to me directly, and
Yes.
I'll put you on
Yes.
the right path for application.
Yes,
Right.
thank you. And I'm so glad that just with our team has such incredible people and them working together. One of the things I really love about our team is we have people on each side of the spectrum. So we have people that are extremely scientific. They want only science, only nuts and bolts, and they want to make sure that our appearance is very good at the very top levels. And then there are others that are on the other side saying, we need to talk about paranormal. We need to talk about the things that can happen between experiencers and the overlap that they might see with paranormal type phenomena.
Sure.
And so we get all sides. And I love that because it keeps us balanced. It keeps that
Mhm.
conversation going, and it keeps us looking for ways forward to always address this the best way possible. Because I think everybody has the best interest at heart. Every member of our team has a very good heart and
Yes.
passion for what we're doing. And by bringing in their different viewpoints, they all have very good points. So it
Right.
forces us to be on top of our game and do our best. So let me go ahead and jump into this. How do you balance the investigative side of your work with the more spiritual and human aspects of the phenomena? Kind of like what we were just speaking to.
Yeah, that's a great question. I feel like, so many of the cases that we see, like 90% roughly, are really just things that are misidentified, right? Like we know what they are. We know they're a planet. We know they're a satellite. We know they're an airplane. We know, maybe it's a lens flare, right? A lot of it is
Yeah.
kind of nuts and bolts, right? But the other side to that, is the people in the human side. And I'm like, there's millions of these cases reported. And I'm just like, everybody can't be wrong. I mean, everybody can't be making this up. and think
Right.
about how many people have come forward and like it didn't go well for them, and like they
Mhm.
didn't really gain anything. So I'm not really seeing people, as reporting this as there's something to gain by it. Oftentimes it goes the other way, for them.
Absolutely.
I mean, when you
Yeah.
Bob Lazar, for an example, he was one of the
Right.
first to come forward, and
Yeah.
it's had an impact on him. So I just believe that there's more to our realities. Someone said this earlier, Terry, it might have been you. Like there is so much more than what the human being can perceive, right?
Right.
Like we know
Right.
that animals and
Absolutely.
other things, their sight is better than ours, their hearing is better than ours. They can
Yes.
perceive things that we as human beings cannot. And I
Right.
just feel like there's so many things out there in the universe that we don't understand and that, we may not know scientifically yet. So just because we don't know it doesn't really mean that it's not there or, we
Exactly.
just haven't discovered it yet.
Mhm.
And so I think there's like the scientific aspect of it, like I said, 90% we know is misidentified. It's that 10% that I think really fascinates us all. And, these are real people, real cases, real investigations. And I just
Mhm.
feel like behind every report, there's a story. There's a
Right.
story to be
There is.
told. And that's
Mhm.
really what brings in the human element of it and the spirituality of it. And because they're seeing things that are unexplainable. So that's kind of
Right.
how I look at it as a balance.
Yeah, and I'm thinking that those that are tuned in tonight and listening, or those that will listen in the future, um, we're concerned about those things. I know a lot of people say, "Oh, well, if you can't prove it, then it didn't happen," and that is not true. Sometimes things happen while we're alone, and many times things happen while we're alone. That doesn't mean it didn't happen. It just meant you were alone. It makes it a little harder to identify with others about it, and often people come forward and they're embarrassed, they're afraid, very insecure about it. But here we are interested in it and we want to know about that. So please reach out to Sam if something has happened that really has you befuddled and you can't wrap your mind around it, because we can help you.
We're part of breaking the stigma.
Yeah. Yes, absolutely.
We're
And I
getting
feel like where
there.
we're going, is we investigate every case without judgment, right?
Right.
We're just
Right.
investigating. That's what we're doing. And,
Right.
we're looking for the truth. We're looking for those answers. And I think anybody who reports a case, no matter what, our goal is to treat everybody with empathy and respect, and hear what they have to say and then not
Yes.
have the judgment about it. And
Right.
I think kind of talking about this too, I want to bring up the Connect team. I mentioned it earlier. And so,
Absolutely.
if you report a case and we fully investigated it, and you still feel like you need support and you want to talk to somebody about an experience you have, we have this amazing Connect team. And like you
Yes.
mentioned Denise Stoner earlier, and we have Seth
Yeah.
Talk on there, and Lisa that you're going to bring on next week. She's part of
Yay.
that. And,
Mhm.
they're just so experienced with dealing with people who have encountered these entities or had, strange things happen to them. So I think, we're covering both sides of this phenomenon and
Right.
very thoroughly. So, yeah.
Yes. Hmm.
So with the long history of the nuts and bolts versus the experiencer reports, do you think these two viewpoints are opposed to each other? And how do you plan to bring unity between the two sides as the National Response Director? Because it's an ongoing, decades that this has been going on.
So the way I view it is it's just same sides or different sides of the same coin, right? I don't necessarily think it's one or the other. I think it's all related. And I'm not going to get on my soapbox about this, but I get frustrated when I hear this topic come up quite a bit, because I'm like, especially the nuts and bolts people who are like, well, the only thing we're really going to look at is a nuts and bolts craft, and I'm making fun of them when I say that, because I'm like, how do you know? I mean, we don't know what the phenomenon is. So how do you know
100%.
what it
Yeah.
isn't?
Right.
And so
Exactly.
I'm like, if you want to exclude experiencers or entities and only look at, a craft in the sky. I'm like, you're missing half of it. So I feel like, the way we have said that we're going to take any case, we will investigate any case to the best of our ability,
Yeah.
and sometimes that's going to be hard. Experiencer cases, and as you mentioned before, like who have no witnesses, you were there by yourself and it happened, like how that gets difficult to investigate, right? But I think when you start seeing these patterns, and that's what you mentioned earlier, Mindy, we're looking for patterns, right, of things that are happening. When you start to see patterns that come up of what people have experienced, and they're all saying the same thing, to me, that just builds credibility to what people are saying. And it just builds a better model for us to understand what's going on.
Yeah.
And there
agree.
are some, yeah, oh, go ahead.
Oh no, I was just saying that I agree.
Yes. And what I was going to say was, there are signs of that experience. It changes their viewpoints for the rest of their lives. It turns them in a completely different direction and makes an unbeliever very much a believer. And all too often, those experiences will continue. They don't just happen once. Something else then will happen, which will strengthen that knowing and that internal knowing. And you start receiving things that you didn't. And the reason is you've opened your mind to what is actually happening. And again, like I said earlier, we're not using all of our mind, and our eyes are very limited. Our hearing is limited. But what's really limited is understanding. If we don't come full front and accept these things as what is happening in other people's lives, and we start to say, oh, well, that couldn't have happened because I can't relate to it. That's just blocking what is trying to happen. And I do think it's spiritual as well as physical and mental. So we do need to be open to these things.
I honestly think that that process within each individual person is part of disclosure.
Yeah.
You have
It
to get
is.
to a certain mindset to be
Yes.
able to even think about the fact that it could be real in the first place.
That's right.
Very true.
I like
You're
And
Benno's
Terry, I know
comment
you've
here.
had. Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt.
I
Go ahead,
was going to say, Benno here had from Oz said, I guess one has to examine the mission statement of an organization. Nuts and bolts is just one expression of reality, which is absolutely right. What I think is kind of funny is that something has to be piloting these nuts and bolts machines.
That's right.
Whether it is infused consciousness, external consciousness, whether it is an actual entity on craft, there is a conscious component to it. So to leave out the entity side of things, to leave out the experiencer side of things, the experiencers are the ones that have been on the craft. They are the ones that have had the direct interaction with the entities that are piloting the craft. And the tech side, yes, it can help humanity, but if we can better understand the entities or the intelligence behind what is operating the craft, that's where the real breakthroughs come, because then maybe we can eventually prove that humanity is ready to take that step. It's much more than just finding a broken vehicle and trying to reverse engineer. It's expanding our human experience and connecting with other civilizations. And can you imagine the tech that comes from that? So,
Well, and we can
a bigger
pioneer
picture.
this. Yeah, we can pioneer this. We don't have to wait for the collective, everybody get in the same boat before we can go forward. If we're being spoken to, if we're being led, if we're being challenged to reach out and move on, then we're pilgrims in a sense. And we're ready and we are willing to start moving in that direction, which is where we are right now at IUFOB. We're not being held back by what others cannot understand. We're going to move forward with what we are understanding. And I believe because we're a team, this isn't like some crazy cult or something, we're all moving forward and we're coming from so many different areas of life and understanding. So moving forward is getting what we need to get to understand the bigger picture. So I just want to say that I'm so grateful to be involved with all these people. And Sam, and we've got Lisa coming on next week, to talk about what she's doing. But a few more questions because we're kind of
Before we
getting
go, I just want to let everybody know that we've got 5 minutes left.
Yes, thank you. I know. I was just going to say we don't have too much more time. From your perspective, Sam, what is the best way forward for Congress and the public in understanding this phenomenon? What are you thinking?
I think educate yourself, especially Congress and the policymakers. I have to admit, the first time when I saw like the first congressional hearing, like they didn't even know about what was going on above our nuclear facilities. They hadn't heard any of these cases before. And I'm like, look, I don't expect you to be as well informed as we are because, for decades we've been studying this. But I think that, maybe you should go through and have, a basic knowledge of this and maybe some of the bigger cases out there, right?
Yes.
But I just feel like we're uniquely qualified to share information with the public. I mean, we have the great website, we have the archives, we have this podcast, we have social media, we have our own whistleblower, Dr. Rogers, that's out there and talking about things. And so I'm like, learn. I mean, we really need to educate the public about what's going on, get them curious, start asking questions, what's going on. And I know for me, I am like just always, and yes, this is my passion, but I'm always reading about it. I'm always, reading books, watching YouTube or something. And just this morning, I mean, like you can get on Twitter or X now and, read about the topic to keep yourself informed. I found out this morning that Don Phillips, who used to work at Skunk Works, he's come out now. And he's very credible. He used to work on the SR-71, the Blackbird. And, he's saying, hey, Skunkworks has the technology now that's like a skin with sensors in it for aircraft.
Yes. Yep.
And, do I say we need to be skeptical of things that are on X? Of course we do. We're not going to believe everything we're reading. But when I hear that someone who is a consultant for Skunkworks is saying, we might have advanced technology, my ears perk up when I hear that. So I
from
just
my
feel
research, yes.
I just feel like it's all coming out right now. So get yourself educated on the topic. Yeah.
Absolutely. And that is so true. So do we have time for one last one? Can we get that? Where's the best place for people to connect with your work and the IUFOB National Response Team?
Well, as I've mentioned before, we have this gorgeous, informative website, the International UFO Bureau.com. So I think that's a great place for anybody to start. I know that Melissa is really working on those archives. There's some things that are up there already, which is just fascinating to me. The Heaven's Gate thing. We're the ones who got the Jimmy Carter case years ago.
Yay.
So there's all kinds of information on the website for you. And then if you need to get a hold of me directly, like I said, it's NRD, almost like nerd, November Romeo Delta at IUFOB.com. And that's how you can reach me.
Yay.
Awesome. Well, Sam, this is blown by. I wanted to really quick before we sign off today. I wanted to let people know you had mentioned Dr. Rogers, and he actually just released his book this week. So it's called We Got It From Them, How Humanity Received ET Technology by Dr. Gregory Rogers. And it was published by Annex Publishing, and it's available on Amazon. So I encourage those listening to go out and get a copy because it's incredible. I got a sneak peek of it. And also to the audience, what do you think experiencers, or what role do you think experiencers play in shaping the future of UFO research and disclosure? So let us know down in the comments and we'll be watching. And Sam, thank you so much for joining us today. I've enjoyed this.
My pleasure.
Yeah, we're so glad you're part of the team. You fit in so well.
Yes.
Oh, thank you.
You're such a leader. You're doing so wonderful in that position. And we can't thank you enough, Sam. I'm so glad that you and Lisa both had come to us and everyone was like, Sam Sheridan, she's your gal. And you sure as heck were. So,
when this is your passion, it's easy. I mean, this doesn't feel like work at all. This is just fun.
Yeah.
It is. It is. And it's very interesting fun.
Well, we'll have to bring you back here in a couple of months and give some updates about some of the newer cases coming out and whatnot, and kind of see how things are progressing, because I know we're constantly changing, like I said. And bless your heart, you've been going through all the protocols that me and Terry wrote and trying to make sense of it and put things together and get together trainings. And it's a
you.
lot, and it's happening so quick, but thank you.
Yes.
Mhm. You're welcome.
Absolutely.
All right, guys. Well, that's our show for today. And as always, thank you for joining us on the Bureau. Visit internationalUFOBureau.com and follow us on social media to stay connected. Until next time, stay curious, stay courageous, and never stop demanding the truth.
Thank you for joining us today on The Bureau. For exclusive content, follow the International UFO Bureau on Instagram, TikTok, and Facebook. From yesterday's sightings to tomorrow's revelations, be sure to tune in next time right here only on KGRA, Sundays at 7 p.m. Eastern.